Good morning. The May 1st meeting of the Anne Arundel County Council is now in session. Please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilwoman Fiedler will introduce Reverend Jason Poling from St. Andrew's Episcopal Church in Pasadena. Councilwoman Fiedler.
I'd like to welcome Reverend Poling today. Reverend Poling is from St. Andrew's Episcopal Church in Pasadena. While outside of my district, it is a church that I attended for many years in my youth, so thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. Mindful of the diversity of faith commitments in our county and in this room, I will pause at the conclusion of my prayer for you to conclude the prayer silently before I do in the way I know how to. The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, send down upon those who hold office in this county, especially the members of the County Council, the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, that with steadfast purpose they may faithfully serve in their offices to promote the well-being of all people. I pray this through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning again, everyone. I have the distinct honor of introducing the elected officials and community leaders. There are people that RSVP'd and those that are not. Those that did not, you might get left out. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to do my best to make sure I recognize you. So let me go through the list here that was handed to me in terms of folks that are here. First of all, we have folks from the Board of Education. Dr. Arlato, our superintendent. If you could just stand, we'll applause and everybody's done. Dr. Arlato. Michelle Corkadell, school board member. Julie Hummer, school board member. Melissa Ellis, school board member. And is Dana Schellheim here? She RSVP'd? I do not see her. Okay, very good. Oh, Candace Antwine. All right, great, thank you. We also have folks from the community here today. Dale Woldruff, detentions officers, if you'd please stand. Joe Avanola from our firefighter union, along with some other folks from the union. Thank you for coming out. Elizabeth Rossberg, CAC chair. Thank you for coming. Janet Holbrook, Wise Women, not here. Bill Jones, oh, there you go, thank you. Bill Jones from our Teachers Association. Ray Zapersky and Ray Smallwood from Maryland City Civic Association. Amy Leahy from the Greater Severna Park Council. Okay, and is there any other community groups? Of course, everybody can stand because we're all here for the budget. Former Councilman Jerry Walker and President of the Anne Arundel Economic Development Corp. Thank you for being here. And then we have our mayor here, Mayor Gavin Buckley from Annapolis. Thank you for coming. State officials, Ann Colt-Litis, our state's attorney. And that is all. Who did I miss? If anyone stand that needs to be recognized. Ramon Robinson? Well, I think the county executive is going to introduce the department chair. So I think I have everybody, but I want to welcome everybody for being here. We're all anxious to hear the budget presentation, and thank you for your patience. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce the county executive, Steuart Pittman. Ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. I will not introduce all the department heads, nor will I introduce everybody from the staff of Anne Arundel County who's here, because we have a lot to go through, and that'll take a long time. So, but thank you for being here today, all of you. Thank you, Chairman Pruski and Vice Chair Pickard. Thank you to my friends on the County Council, all 7 of you. Appreciate your advocacy for funding in your districts, and I look forward to working with you to improve the budget that I present today. Thank you in advance to our county auditor and her staff. Please find efficiencies, savings, and mistakes if they exist in this budget. We all work for the same boss, the people of Anne Arundel County, and we need to get this right. Thank you to the county department heads and their staffs who are here today with fingers crossed, hoping that the funding you requested shows up in this budget. Throughout this process, I have appreciated your dedication and your passion for what you do. Thank you to the budget office led by acting budget officer Jessica Lays. Jessica here, yes, in green, same color as the budget. These people are my heroes. This office, their work ethic, their smarts, their institutional knowledge make them the taxpayer's best friend. I also want to thank a special guest, my wife, Erin. She's here to make sure that this budget reflects the values that she and I share. Finally, I want to thank the 1,100 county residents who showed up to one or more of our 7 budget town halls. Your advocacy weighed heavily in the decisions that we made in this budget, and I have no doubt that it will also impact the work of the county council as they deliberate. I love those town halls, and if you all on the council are up for it, we'll do them again next year. Thumbs up? Thumbs down? Thumbs up? All right, good. All right, let's get them on the schedule. We'll get that done after we do our 16 small area meetings that we're doing in the next 2 months. So, over the last year and a half, I've done a lot of listening. I've heard over and over again from the people in every part of this county that we have not managed our growth. Traffic, overcrowded schools, polluted water are on people's minds and impacting our quality of life every day. I've been told by political experts that our county taxpayers don't want to invest in services, and that the only way for past county executives to create local government revenue was to promote new development. Development was an easy thing to make happen. Regional development interests have been attracted to our land for decades, and that in itself is not a bad thing. But when you build new houses and attract new businesses, somebody has to pay for the roads, the police, the firefighters, the teachers, the schools, and all of the public services. That funding can come from the tax base, or it can come from fees paid by the developers. Unfortunately, it came from neither. As we grew from a rural to a suburban county, our elected officials lacked the courage to budget for the future. We turned our backs as school class sizes grew to unacceptable levels, teacher morale declined, our school construction backlog reached $2 billion. We turned our backs as call volume for fire and EMS grew 7% annually. We turned our backs as police officers were forced to work 12-hour shifts. We turned our backs as acres of trees were cut down and sediment from uninspected construction sites flowed into our creeks and rivers. We turned our backs as school construction backlog grew to $2.1 billion and our traffic ground to a standstill. The last administration found a short-term fix. They extended bond payment terms from 20 to 30 years and exceeded the affordability guidelines in the capital budget last year by $73 million, all while cutting the taxes that we use to repay the debt. The budget that I present to you today has no such gimmicks. It is fiscally responsible and it confronts the challenges that we face as a county. I want to talk a little bit more about the challenges. My first meeting with a budget team was an eye-opener. They showed us projected revenues, including some $53 million in growth. Then they showed us how much of that money is already obligated to things that we cannot cut from the budget. Things like debt service and obligations to our employees and retirees. Those obligations added up to some $45 million, leaving $8 million to address the unmet needs of the county. A few weeks later, the budget office showed me what we collected in the last 10 years on development impact fees. They compared it to what we were told was the true impact of development. The county council in 2008, possibly influenced by campaign contributions from the developers who pay those fees, set rates so low that we have since lost out on $127 million. And then came School Superintendent Dr. George Arlotto's budget presentation to the school board. He described the same needs I had been hearing from teachers, parents, and students, and he had a plan to address them. That plan cost $73 million over the previous year. That's when I went to the budget office and started the conversation about revenues. Here's what I learned. The state of Maryland ranks Anne Arundel County 23rd of 24 counties for tax effort. Only Talbot County taxes at lower rates than we do. Our property tax rate is now at 90.2 cents per $100 of value. It was more than $1 before our property tax revenue cap took effect in 1992. There are only 4 Maryland counties with lower property tax rates than ours, and all of them are rural counties where development has not pushed up the demand for services. Our revenue cap allows us to benefit from the growth of our tax base only as much as the rate of inflation, or 4.5%, whichever is lower. The more our tax base grows, therefore, the farther down it pushes the rate. The exception is new development. The fact that revenue from new development is not limited by the cap serves as a driver to our county's addiction to development. The Maryland General Assembly passed legislation in 2012 to prevent local revenue caps from forcing limits on education funding. We can set a property tax rate higher than our revenue cap limit if the purpose is to fund the school board's budget request. The idea of going through the revenue cap made me uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable until I saw a chart showing the 4 times that politicians lowered the ceiling for future years by setting rates lower than the cap. I don't believe that the drafters of our revenue cap intended to give politically motivated politicians the power to force taxes down after they depart from office, but they did. Those 4 political decisions cost the county $470 million combined, and without them, our property tax rate today would be 93.5 cents. We can fix this. I'm proposing a correction to our revenue cap of exactly that amount. We will generate $26.6 million toward the budget request of the school board by resetting our property tax rate at 93.5 cents, if approved by the county council. For those who worry about losing our low tax status, fear not. We will retain our ranking of 5th lowest in the state, far below the $1 or more paid by residents of all of the other Big 8 counties. If you've been following the numbers, you may note that $26 million does not pay for the full school board budget request. And it certainly does not help us with public safety or infrastructure needs. So we turn to the income tax. A number of people noted in our town halls that the income tax is less burdensome than the property tax for senior homeowners on fixed incomes. Since the most recent federal tax cuts primarily benefited the wealthiest Americans, protecting lower income residents from the tax burden is paramount in my mind. This budget proposes an income tax adjustment from 2.5% to 2.81%. That increase will generate $28.6 million in FY20, plus additional revenue in 21 and 22 due to the way the income taxes are paid and passed through the state. That payment schedule matches our multi-year plans to fund infrastructure and public safety staffing. And again, for those of you who worry about the competition, we retain our low tax status. Next year, we are likely to be the only one of the Big 8 counties that does not tax income at the maximum allowed by the state of 3.2%. We remain far below that. So, moving on. Swallow that one. Our county charter directs us to set tax rates based on our assessment of the county's needs. I want to share with you some of the needs that will be met if this budget is approved. If I leave your department out, it's not for lack of love, it's lack of time. The budget is large if you've seen it, and you don't want me to read it. So let's start with education. Schools. Schools are the institutions in the communities that drive our property values, bring good businesses to our county, and offer young people, regardless of background, a chance at a good life. Our student population has grown 13% in the last 10 years, and during that same time, our teacher population has grown by about half of that. Every year, we fall farther behind, and that's unacceptable. This budget funds 136 new classroom teachers next year, 26 to keep up with projected enrollment, and the rest to actually reduce class sizes. You can clap for that one, if you can. I know my wife wants to clap for that one. We have 2 kids at Davidsonville Elementary. Parents, students, and teachers will notice the difference. We also fund 27 new positions to address the mental health needs of our students. including 14 school counselors, 6 psychologists, 6 social workers, and 1 pupil personnel worker. Yeah. And we add 47 new special education positions. You can add more if you want. These personnel are just the start of our student mental health efforts. They say it takes a village to raise a child, and it's time to work on our village. I will be personally engaged in that process, and you'll be hearing a lot more on this from our administration in the coming months. You've heard a lot about teacher pay in this county, and I'm glad you have. We have great teachers, and they're underpaid. I had the honor of sitting at a table of elementary school teachers from Mayo and Lothian last week at the Teacher of the Year Award banquet, and we watched videos of students that were explaining why their teacher deserves the big award. And all of these teachers at my table were mesmerized. You'd think that teachers wouldn't be that into videos of kids in classrooms on a weekday night when they're out with their peers, but they were. Every single one of them, they giggled, they clapped, they said, "Aw," a lot, and some of them even cried. Our teachers care. And when they say that they need to be paid more, it's not because they're greedy, it's because they want to keep doing what they're doing. They don't want to leave for a better job in another county. They want to keep teaching our kids, and as a parent, I can say that I want them to stay. This budget delivers, not only for our teachers, but all of our school support staff. We are fully funding Dr. Arlotto's proposed pay package, as well as the enhancement unanimously approved by our bipartisan school board, which adds 2 much-needed catch-up steps increases for teachers employed here in 2010 and 2011. I agree. Overall, this budget funds over 90% of the school board's budget request. This is where I must thank our county delegation to the General Assembly for their hard work on the blueprint for education. They're not here today because they have some important business to do across the road, but we'll be reading about that tomorrow and later today. That legislation added $13.5 million in support for our schools in FY20, and that is helping us pay for what I have just talked about. In particular, I want to thank Speaker Mike Bush. He included language in the blueprint at our request guaranteeing that whatever investment we make in our schools this year will count toward any future year's match required in Kerwin funding formulas. We told him we were investing big this year, and we wanted to make sure we were going to get credit for it down the road. There's one more thing I need to say about education, and then I promise I'll get to the rest of county government. We need to keep the politics out of school construction. That's why we paid MGT to do a 10-year master plan. I believe it's a good plan, and I intend to stick to it. The only flaw in the MGT plan is that it doesn't tell us where the money will come from. That's our job to figure out. Our biggest challenge is described in 2 words. Can anybody guess what those 2 words might be?
Old Mill.
Old Mill. Thank you. Yes. Councilwoman Pickard knows a thing or two about that. It's not just a District 2 issue because the complex at Old Mill serves students from all across Anne Arundel County, and the plan will alleviate crowding everywhere. But it's expensive. It involves building 2 middle schools, 2 high schools, and a new CAT North. I questioned the plan. I thought there must be another way. But I've taken the tour, I've looked at the study, and I've asked the tough questions, and I believe that it's time to stop talking and start building. The problem is that once we start, we have to finish. And once we start, no money will be available for anything else in our capital budget if we are to stay within our spending affordability limits. We have a solution. It's hardly a new idea. It's sitting right there in our county charter, and our budget office has talked about it for years. Councilman Jamie Benoit actually proposed it a few years back, and the only vote he got was Chris Trumbauer. It's called the Reserve Fund for Permanent Public Improvements, a mechanism to fund large capital projects that would otherwise not fit into the capital improvement plan. Money in the fund is used to sell bonds to finance new projects, but of course we need a revenue source to make payments. Remember that increase in our income tax rate from 2.5 to 2.81%? Of course you remember it. How could we forget it? A third of that, an income tax assessment of 0.1%, will be dedicated to the fund. We'll call the fund the PPI, because it's really hard to say it otherwise. That won't show up in the FY20 budget, but starting in FY21, we'll generate a capital infusion of $250 million for school construction, public safety, and transportation needs. We believe that this is the only fiscally responsible way to confront our backlog of infrastructure needs. Pulling this off also requires some sacrifice on the spending side. The FY20 capital budget that you have is $330 million. That's down from $378 million last year. We cut $45 million because we had to. Last year, the county overspent affordability by $73 million, and so this year we spent less. We're passing on the $33 million, on the $33 million rubble landfill under contract for purchase by my predecessor. We cannot and will not finance the Bayhawks project, and we are postponing some projects that we'd like to get started with. So let's talk about the current operating budget. We have a lot of department heads here, and they're looking for answers. So we'll run through them here quickly. Anne Arundel Community College has 40,000 students enrolled in classes, and they're enrolled because they're preparing themselves for the jobs that our local businesses need filled. This institution is an outstanding investment in our county. We're continuing our capital commitment to the construction of the Health and Sciences building, and we've added $3 million of funding to support pay increases for Anne Arundel Community College staff. If you don't know, community college professors are the backbone of the institution, but they are underpaid, and we must step up to support them. People go to libraries these days to look for jobs, to navigate government services, to get homework done after school, and sometimes just to explore. We found that our temporary library branch at the Annapolis Mall served a county-wide population that had not been reached before in very large numbers. That's why we've added $544,000 to the budget to make Discoveries at the Mall a permanent branch within our library system. We've also included a significant increase in the library's budget to acquire new in-demand books and other materials. I often say that the most sacred obligation of government is the safety of its people. I learned that from my dad. Getting to know our police officers, our firefighters, and our detention officers has been one of the greatest rewards of this job. They serve in our communities, they go where the trouble is, and they don't hesitate to put their own lives at risk to protect us. We have 765 positions for sworn officers today, but 29 of those are not yet filled. That's 88 officers below the level recommended by the International Association of Police Chiefs when it reviewed our department in 2017. We will fill those 29 vacancies and add another 10 sworn officers. 39 officers this year is step one in Chief Altamari's four-year plan to get us where we need to be. Another major investment that we just can't put off is replacement of our 15-year-old police helicopter. I have to admit, I researched drones as an alternative. I even thought about offering my famous rolls of duct tape. But after reading the report on lives saved and criminals arrested, I couldn't imagine confronting the next disaster in Anne Arundel County without that helicopter. The voters chose the right person for the job when they elected Jim Fredericks. Is he here somewhere? There he is, yep. He's hustling to meet the growing needs for security at the courthouse while also addressing the backlog of warrants, and he needs help. We've proposed one new deputy sheriff this year. We also have an outstanding new fire chief, and Tricia Walford. Our fire department has seen call volume grow by more than 7% in each of the last 5 years, but staffing has been stagnant. Chief Wolford has proposed a multi-year recruitment plan that starts with 35 new firefighters this year. We're working on ways to expedite the hiring process and also to increase diversity in the fire department. Our firefighters are some of the best people I know, and I have a feeling that within a couple of years, good men and women will be flocking to our county wanting to serve with our firefighters. Our people are that good. Superintendent of Detention Facilities, Bill Martin, and his staff are gearing up for major spring recruitment. That's because they must reduce a high vacancy rate, but also because we propose 13 new positions to staff the central booking facility that is due to open at the end of this year. Thanks to the new contract with our detention officers union and the new minimum salary bill just passed unanimously by our county council, we should be able to attract the officers we need on the timeline that we need them. Before moving on from detention, I want to say something about reentry. Derek Matthews is our special assistant to the CAO, and his first project in that role is a full assessment of all reentry programs in the county. He will have recommendations to fill gaps and coordinate efforts so that our rates of recidivism decline and our inmates have every possible opportunity to become productive citizens. This report will be completed in the coming months. So, during the campaign, I promised community-driven planning and enforcement of our environmental laws. We are well on our way to delivering, but to do so effectively requires that we restore some staffing to departments that fell out of favor in recent years. We all know about the failing sediment control at construction sites and failing stormwater management systems. Some of that can be attributed to the fact that our inspectors are responsible for monitoring far more sites than any other county in Maryland with fewer inspectors to do it. In fact, our inspectors have triple the erosion and sediment control workload of the next busiest county in the state. We brought Greg Africa in to lead inspections and permits with a greener and more transparent approach. His first major decision was to request 5 new inspectors to help his department meet the demand, 4 of whom will be environmental inspectors. We must deliver. I'm convinced that with the guidance of Mr. Africa, our new environmental policy director, Matthew Johnston, and input from our new Citizens Environmental Commission, that these inspectors will be put to good use and that there will be a visible impact on water quality. Work is underway on our general development plan. Our future depends on us getting this right. And our communities are rightfully demanding small area planning and community engagement. When County Executive Janet Owens was doing 16 small area plans back in the early 2000s, there were 20 planners involved. Today we have 4. Clearly we have a problem. That's why this budget includes 6 new planners and a deputy director of the Office of Planning and Zoning. I get pretty worked up talking about land use, same with education, public safety, fiscal responsibility, and a lot of other issues. But I'll tell you who I really do this job for. I do it for the people in a report that was recently released called Poverty Amidst Plenty. It's not just about the 6% of our residents below the federal poverty line. It's also about the people whose paychecks run out before the end of the month because they're paying more for rent, more for childcare, more for prescription drugs, and more for food than they can afford. One of our greatest failings in the last decade, in my opinion, has been an unwillingness, despite warnings from our Chamber of Commerce and many of our businesses, to encourage and create housing that is affordable for our workforce, affordable for young adults, and affordable for seniors. When Housing and Community Development Services proposed expanding its tenant-based rental assistance fund, I gave them what they asked for. It's only $300,000, but it's a start. I'm also proposing an additional $1 million for the Rental Housing Production Fund. For the Department of Social Services, we've included 4 new contractual positions: a behavioral health specialist at Sarah's House, a planning and grant writing professional, a social worker, and a family investment case worker. If you read Poverty Amidst Plenty, and I encourage you to do so, you'll understand exactly why these positions are needed. We're proposing funding in the Department of Aging to do a full assessment of county buildings to ensure that all of our facilities eventually become accessible to people with disabilities. One of the disappointments of my first 5 months in office has been my own failure to hire a permanent health officer. That search is underway, but under the able leadership of Acting Health Officer Billy Penley and her staff, outstanding work is being done at our Department of Health. This budget will add to our Behavioral Health Bureau a bilingual therapist and a youth and adolescent therapist to meet increased demand for services. It also includes $100,000 toward costs associated with safe stations and a part-time fatal overdose review team coordinator. My wife will gladly tell you how increasing spending on anything is very much out of character for me. So now I want to talk about management and efficiency. This is where our CAO, Ben Burge, should be stepping up to the podium, but I won't let him because we'd be here all day. Ben promised to build us a county stat program, a system that evaluates programs based on agreed upon metrics, and performance is visible not only to those of us in government, but also to the public. He built and managed a similar system in Prince George's County, and he's a recognized expert in the field. The problem is that Ben is also our CAO. He needs to hire 2 analysts to get this done right. These positions are in this budget, and I believe they will give us the information we need to decide which programs are worthy of public support and which ones are not in the future. We've also requested 2 assistant CAO positions to coordinate policy initiatives with multiple agencies in the areas of land use and human services. Both of these positions have existed in previous administrations. I want to close by saying something about how I expect this budget to be received. Some will say it's not ambitious enough, that we should do more. Our department directors requested some $50 million in supplemental requests, not including education, and we funded just under half of that. We also left out a lot of capital budget requests unfunded this year. But others will say it's too much, that raising taxes is always wrong because government is too big and should shrink. I respect that philosophy, but it is not mine. I believe that when communities confront problems, they should use every tool in the box, whether it's one offered by the marketplace, the nonprofit sector, or the government. I also believe very strongly that when government spends money, it should be honest with its taxpayers. We should pay our bills just like we do at home. I can assure you that the bond rating agencies think that way as well. I explained our fiscal challenges to them, and I assured them that I was willing to do whatever it takes on the revenue side to meet our obligations. That's exactly what they like to hear, and we were recently informed that our ratings will remain at a very respectable AAA and AA+. I won't venture to predict how my friends on the council will receive this budget, but I hope you agree with me that it strikes the right balance. It's in your hands now. If you oppose the increased revenue, offer some cuts. If you can find some savings, take it. If you want something added, fight for it. If we made a mistake, fix it. I wish you well over the next 45 days. Coming together as a group won't be easy. 4 of you are from one party, 3 of you are from another, and a bunch of you are lawyers. So good luck. Before I close, I just want to say something to the people who may be not be in this room but watching the video. Don't give up. Whatever it is you want from this government, or don't want for that matter, organize. Bring like-minded people together and build for strength. Take it to the county council, take it to me. I think I can speak for all of the elected officials in this room as well as the appointed staff in saying that this is your government, your tax dollars, and your budget. So fight for it. Lastly, I just want to say what an honor it is to be serving the people of this county and everyone in this room. Together, I am sure that we will achieve our common goal of making Anne Arundel County the best place. So thank you.
Before we close, if you indulge me one more second, we do have some other folks that showed up for the presentation. I know Sheriff Jim Fredericks, thank you. We were mentioned in the speech. Thank you for coming. Mike Akers from AFSCME, if you'd please stand. Thank you for coming. And we have Vicki Gibson from the Orphans Court. I appreciate you coming out. And before we leave, a lot of people don't understand. First of all, we thank all the budget offices, but I would like Joanne Gray, Laura, and our staff to stand along with Susan Smith, the County Auditor's Office. They do a lot of work. They deserve a round of applause. Thank you. Certainly, we have our work ahead, and the council is going to get to it. The council will recess and reconvene in these chambers at 1 p.m. Thank you all, everyone.